Some things definitely need to be said about this issue, with Tommy Robinson being in prison, because the judges are actually just lying now. They're just blatantly lying. This Justice Chamberlain has lied. He's committed perjury of the country by making a lie under his oath, judicial oath as a judge. He says that there's no possible argument or a matter of appeal that Lex Lennon could rely on when there is. And he's got, the judge has got a legal obligation and the overriding objectives to recognise that the Attorney General is supposed to do it. But since 2005, every single party has got to recognise it in every case, not just a public order case, but every case, right? So Justice Chamberlain, what's happening now is we're getting extremely serious offences by very high-ranking people in the government in order for them to attempt to try to somehow be politically correct or set a certain image. Now, this is what I want to say to Donald Trump, really, if I can somehow get a message to him. Maybe if I send it to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he might be able to pass it on or whatever. But what I would say to Donald Trump is this. Donald Trump and the United States of America seem to have quite a different attitude to all this than the British government and the World Economic Forum. And I just want to... This is like an honest evaluation of what is manifesting. Because you can have all these strategies and say, well, it's like arm wrestling. You could say, okay, I'm going to let the other guy beat me for a while and then I'm going to come back really strong, right? You could say that. So while, you're having the arm wrestle, at the point when you're just like letting him beat you, you're allowing your arm to come back, right? And then you're claiming that you've got the strength to push it the other way and beat him later, right? But what was actually manifesting is that you're losing, right? So what's actually happening is you're losing. Now, if it is possible for you to win, right, later on, and then, if you had the strength to push him back the whole time, right, why would you do that? Right? Obviously, because you're wanting to make it look a certain way. That's the analogy that I think we've got here. But what actually is happening, what is manifesting in this country, right? And what are the effects of that, right? And what are the intentions? And are we going to push it back or is it for sure? Now, I've been thinking about this, right? And I think it's quite important. It says here, right, this is just for an example with like your Islam and Muslim mosques and so forth, right? And all these different religious and racial issues that we've got, right? It says here that there aren't any churches of the Christian faith in Saudi Arabia, right? They're not allowed them. They won't have them, right? They will not have them. But Saudi Arabia, it's got oil, hasn't it? And engineering and so forth. I've got a friend who went to university and did engineering, right, to a very high level, right? He's an engineer. He designed his machine parts to precision standards, for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pound projects, right? And I know for a start that he went to Saudi Arabia. When he got his job after he graduated university, he got a job in Saudi, right? So Saudi... Saudi doesn't say that, there's no machines allowed in Saudi Arabia. They don't say, we don't want computers, we don't want laptops, we don't want, agricultural vehicles, we don't want oil pumps, right? This is the thing with the Luddites. At school, you're taught that the Luddites, apparently they were opposed to machinery, they didn't want it. Well, when you actually read the legislation, the truth, the Luddites were not opposed to machinery or technology at all. They petitioned over minimum wage. It was all about the pay and the money and the loss of other jobs from other sectors and cheap labour. Actually, it wasn't particularly about technology, right? Like now we've actually got a real problem with technology because we've got like this Big Brother Watch campaign group, among others, are actually concerned about... now, that is a true argument about technology, the effects that it has on everyone's lives, privacy and so forth, right? When you get into Tony Blair's freedom of information and overall strategies of corporate takeover, right? Basically, they're making our personal, private life into their business, right? So when you say the statement, right, oh, what you're doing, oh, that's none of your business, right? Well, no, it is their business. So, like, inside your private mind, is that any of anyone else's business? Well, now the police are making it their business in Scotland. They're making your mind into their business, where before it was none of their business, right? And, what you say and do in your home and in your own private life, and what you plan, your hopes, dreams, futures, private thoughts, is now their business, right? Now, if you're a terrorist or so forth, you've got to take certain actions in order to, qualify as if you're planning a terrorist plot, right? Just for an example, right? So it only becomes the police's business when you go about the actions, right? I mean, when you get onto that novelist level like Columbo, right? If you're thinking of a crime, to think of crime and to write it down on paper, but I'm only thinking of it, because of the idea of it, right? Even though I'm writing the idea down in books and publishing them and putting them out, I don't expect anyone to do it, right? But there's the idea, there's the idea, right? But they're wanting people to have the idea for the purposes of entertainment, not for the purposes of to actually copy it and do it. But then you get onto Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and, why are all these shootings happening at schools and so forth, right? But let's try and pull this right back now to what I started off with, this Saudi Arabia thing. Tommy Robinson is in prison. He's in there illegally. The wrong law was used. And this judge, Justice Chamberlain, has claimed in a statement by the newspapers, he's quoted to have said that effectively, there is no possible law which can be used to appeal it, which is a lie. It's wrong. There's a law of privileges, and there are multiple acts of law which those privileges are actually in the common law, like the Copyright Act 1911, Section 20, and various other acts which cover political speech of a political nature in public. And then, it eventually goes on to the Parliamentary Papers Act, and then lots of case study and law which make it so you don't even need permission from Parliament. If it is a political video or political object, right, it can qualify for privileges, and the Attorney General's meant to check that, right? So Chamberlain's just wrong. And from 2005, Chamberlain himself as a judge in the criminal procedure rules and the civil procedure rules, as a judge receiving a claim and looking at the particulars of a claim, he's got a legal obligation to identify a political object in there of his own initiative without the barrister raising it or entering it in the defence material. It's a purely independent requirement. It's an independent requirement to be recognised for political objects in the exact same way that the Attorney General did it through the First Public Order Act. So Chamberlain's wrong. He's committed perjury, right? Now, in all their language and in all their representations, they're dropping in innuendos like there's no tomorrow, the Ministry of Justice, the courts, and they're dropping these innuendos in. And what they're doing is they're framing it so that, we kind of know that we're doing this illegally. We're not going to admit that, but we're going to hint at it. And the claim is that Yaxley Lennon, because he's because of the nature of his political activities against, certain racial or religious groups, even though it's lawful opposition, right? And he's been disclosing crimes and offences, he's at risk, right? And they're dropping innuendos that he's at risk, and they're framing it that he's at risk. So they're going to illegally charge him for a crime and offence, ignore the constitutional law, and put him in prison. And then further, after all this political aggravation and publicity, which they could have banned all reports of it from the press, right? It's actually caused even more threat to him in prison, and now he's going to go into solitary confinement or whatever, because there were other inmates who have been provoked to, possibly approach Lennon or attack him, right? They could have completely banned reporting of the whole thing, right? But they didn't. That could have stopped it. So what they're actually doing is they're actually stirring it up and making it worse themselves. But they're making out that it's Yaxley Lennon as a stirrer, and therefore, for his own safety, they're going to convict him as a criminal and put him in prison, right, to protect him. Now, in order to do that, they've had to break multiple laws. Multiple justices, like Justice Johnson, who wrote a paper on privileges himself, and Justice Chamberlain, are having to become criminals in perjury, making false statements against the judicial oath in court. So that's a self-sacrifice. You might say, well, for the country, Chamberlain and Johnson are going to sacrifice themselves for the nation just to protect Yaxley Lennon. But in truth, they've already, in other cases, have broken the Constitution and lied. In fact, most of the judges have, just like all the police chief officers, have engaged in illegal road signage usage and enforcement, and all the police chief officers. So I don't know how worse you can get than every single one of the King's justices, every single one of the King's police chief officers. Now, there's another part of this, right? Let's go on to the nature of Yaxley Lennon's original political cause. So the original nature of Yaxley Lennon's original political cause is that it is a political cause against certain groups, right, who happen to be certain religious groups or ethnic groups, right? Now, that existing in itself, it is going to be problematic for the government, and they don't like it. Now, if you look at the protest laws and the Public Order Acts and so forth, they've really tried to enact it into the common law that you're not even really allowed to make. They're almost trying to make it so that you can't make these representations. They're illegal. Even if you want to try and get the government to make or change certain laws. So they're trying to frame it so that a certain political party might not be allowed to legally exist, or you couldn't have a certain manifesto. When that's impossible, because the right of the people is to have whatever laws they want, right? Now, Yaxley Lennon's campaign, one of the names of one of his campaigns was called Manifesto, right? Now, this is the thing. If a government, right, wants to try and make it so you couldn't possibly have these groups like National Front or the BNP, British National Party, or, UKIP or SNP, then you wouldn't actually be able to say, we want this country to be like this or that, whatever it is, because it might offend a certain race or religion, right? And this is where I think Nigel Farage's cut-off point is. Because Nigel Farage's cut-off point, he was all in the boats against the immigrants. He was all, he was making videos, championing, opposing all these unlawful immigration on the boats and so forth. But then when it got to this point that someone mysteriously bought out his party for 200 grand, and then they told him to start, not speaking to certain people in his party and so forth, basically mysteriously got taken over and infiltrated. So he's not allowed to do certain things in his party because it's, too tenuous or whatever, or politically on edge. Farage is, basically now saying that, he's on the camp that, you're not allowed to have certain policies because it's going to upset certain people, right? So, but in law, it's impossible for you to not have certain policies because you've got the right to have certain policies, right? You can shape the country into what you want if you get voted in, right? If you start making certain policies illegal, then you're actually you yourself are discriminating, right, against certain possibilities. Now, this is the thing, right? So, as it stands, right, we've got Charles, who likes to go around the world shaking hands with everyone, right, and wants to be their best friend. So Charles is going around the world, right, shaking hands with, absolutely, everyone on the planet, right, lining them all up for him, right, whether it's Zulus or whatever, you name it, he's there shaking their hand, and he's putting their arm around them, and he's got plastic carrier bags of, multiple pound notes saying, we love you, we want you to be part of the global community, right? We want you to be part of the global community, inclusion and diversity, right? So as Charles is going around the planet with his like inclusion and diversity flag, shaking their hands and saying, we love you, we love you, we love you, right? And making all these deals on behalf of England. And by the way, now this is the thing. These countries are accepting our engineers. They're like, come work in Saudi Arabia, like top engineers, right? This is like Elon Musk with his, top 3% of Indians going into America, right? Because they're brilliant at maths or engineering or whatever, right? They want our engineering, right, in Saudi. They want our engineering. They want our university graduates, engineers, but they don't want our religion, Christianity, right? It's illegal. Right, we're not having that, right? Now, so let me get this right. I've seen I've seen that salmon fishing in the Yemen film, by the way, quite a while ago, but I have seen that film. It's meant to be relevant to all this, right? Now, we'll get back to that analogy of the arm wrestle, right? So, Charles is going around shaking all their hands, right? And, he's... So what Charles is doing, right, is in order to win over these Saudis, right, he's letting them beat him at arm wrestling, right? And what he's doing is he's letting them all into this country, welcoming them all in, inclusion and diversity, all different races and religions and ethnic groups have been on, the BBC since 1985, in Doctor Who and, EastEnders, you name it, right? There's Chinese, Indian, you name it, I mean, I've been a big fan of foreign religions my whole life out of interest and countries as well, right? But when you actually learn what's going on, right? Oh, I love these things. These are great, But then when the Chinese food is actually quite bad. It's making you ill. The Indian food's quite bad. It's making people ill. And pizzas, we're not discriminating against being Chinese or Indian, and the pizzas and the fish and chips and all the other poor foods, right? And the dry foods as well. But the Chinese and Indian is a big part of it because it's very, very bad, that type of food. It's extremely bad, these, kormas and, sweet and sour things that the people are bringing back from these Chinese restaurants. So they're probably at the top of the list, the worst food that people should be bringing back to the house, right, or even getting. When you assess what's going on, right, we've got to the point where Charles has set an example. He's welcomed everyone into the country, right? And now you've got Shabana Mahmood, right, who is the chance. She's the Lord Chancellor or whatever. She's meant to be like not like the sort of equivalent in the House of Commons of the Chief Justice, right? She's sort of like, there's a Chancellor of the Exchequer and then there's a Lord Chancellor, right? And she's a woman of an ethnic group, right? But she's achieved one of the highest positions in the country that you can get. So what does this say to Saudi Arabia? It says, look, people from your religions and races and countries can get very high up in the English government, right? We welcome them in. It's diversity and inclusion, right? And then these become the best friends of, like Baroness Carr, right? And Justice Chamberlain, like, they become the friends of the Lords, they become the friends of the government, friends of elected MPs, right? Whether it's the Green Party, whether it's Carla Denyer, whether it's, they're friends, right? So the friends stick up for their friends. Now, what you've got, and this is a very important to Donald Trump, this is an example, right? Extremely important, right? Tony Blair, right? We have laws in this country, right? That you've got to abide by the law. Or what's the point of having it, right? And you've got important laws very high up in government, right? Because you've got like perjury, treason, corruption. You can't say, we're going to enforce the law at a street level, but not enforce it, at very high important levels, which are quite serious levels, like justices, members of parliament, members of the Lords, right? All these, different departments of government, right? What Tony Blair did, they've still got the death penalty, by the way, in America, right? Tony Blair, and this is what Andrew Bridgen said, the first thing that Tony Blair did when he became Prime Minister was abolish the death penalty for treason in this country, right? They got rid of it in 1962 for hanging people, you know, for other crimes, right? Just like, you know, other felonies, right? But not for treason. That means that, right, they didn't think that betraying your country and breaking the highest laws of the Constitution against your country is that serious anymore. Now, if you believe that betraying your own country and Constitution is not that serious, then you can't be intending to really put people off breaking that law. And you might even, you know, might actually think that you might be going to break it. Because the average citizen wouldn't be prosecuted for treason. Mainly, since the right to petition, you can say what you want, right, to the king in complaint and grievance. So the average citizen wouldn't need that law. But, right, the only people who are likely to commit treason or perjury are likely. You can only really commit perjury if you're sworn in, right, or if you're on oath in court. But for treason, it's only really evil justices, ministers, and councillors, because that's what it says in the Bill of Rights, right? Evil justice, ministers, and councillors subverting the liberties of the realm, right? So it's only really going to be justices, ministers, or councillors, or someone in the House of Lords, right, who are going to be able to commit big treason unless you're some, you know, massive spy, or you start getting into, you know, IRA stuff, or Putin, you know, Russian spy and all that type of stuff, right? Now, the thing is this. It basically means that they're going to be more lenient on people who do the most serious, highest crimes that you can think of, right? The most serious and highest crimes that you can think of, right? That they're going to be more lenient on them, right? Because they're not going to kill them. Now, fair enough. But this is the thing. They're now starting to make certain people's opinions and views when it comes to religion and race matters, right? They're making those... firstly, they're making it into an offence. And they're saying that it's illegal and you're not allowed to have these certain opinions or express them because it could aggravate certain things. And then by the time they're finished, the way they're going, right, you're not even allowed to have a political view or a political party or even say that you want your country to, like, you know, God forbid, you know, what happens if, like, this is just a pure example because I've got to, like, set this out exemplary to describe the problem, right? If a political party said, right, we want England to be all white, or if you had a political party that said we want England to be all Christian, we're not even going to allow another, you know, mosques or Buddhists or whatever in this country, right? I'm not saying that, you know, do that, but I'm saying that if they wanted to have a political party in the government that did that, right? They said to have that political party and to get votes or to get signatures to make the government to do it, you've got to advertise it, right? Now, what the government's current position is on that is that by its existence, right, it's going to cause problems. It's going to cause a reaction. It's going to cause trouble with those religions and ethnic groups if you were to advocate those policies, right? And this is where we get into Tommy Robinson's manifesto and all this. And then Nigel, there's the reason why Nigel Farage is telling, you know, Rupert Lowe and Graham Cox and all these people that, you know, to leave the party. It's why Tice is saying, you know, leave the party, because in order for reform to succeed, it's got to be able to get in government, and it's got to have some relations or friendship with those other groups, or it won't get the votes. Which is where you've got Charles going around, you know, the world shaking everyone's hand and wanting to be everyone's best friend, and you know, saying, waving the inclusion and diversity flag, right? But this is the thing. We've now got mosques being built in the Lake District of England, right? We've got plenty of ethnic groups in Leicester, Blackburn, London, Bristol, and diffused through the whole country now, right? And the thing is, right, you know, what has that manifested? And what is the current situation? Well, the current situation is that the results of it, they're trying to completely and totally ban or make it the worst severe crime of humanity that you had a political party that was to say, oh, we don't want that. We just want white people in this country, or we just want Christianity in this country, right? I'm not saying that you should have a political party of that nature, but they're trying to make out that to have that view and advertise it is automatically going to effectively be incitement, and it's going to cause riots and trouble. But how is that only possible? Because you invited everyone in, right? Now, this is the thing. There is no way on this earth, right, that a person's own private thoughts and views or a vote for something that they would like their government to do to make a law or how they would like their country to be purely based on their own opinions and views, right? Well, it's not a crime because you're allowed to do it. Because you're allowed to say, I'd like my country, covered in oak trees, or I'd like my country to be loads of ponds and lakes, or a golf course, the entire country, right? Or I'd like my country to be, like all factories everywhere, no fields. You know, the whole point of having a petition or a political party is that you can say, oh, I'd like this or that, please, right? With these Shabana Mahood pals of the judiciary and, Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman and Priti Patel being like the World Hug group of this government, right? They're trying to push for it that to suggest that you might want all white people in England is the most grievous crime possible, and you're not even allowed to have the idea, right? And the police should be scanning your mind and brain just to make sure you don't think that, even if you're writing a fucking novel for a fucking movie or a fictional book, right? Which people are doing, by the way, right? Now, this is the thing. But Keir Starmer, Ed Miliband, Nigel Farage, all these people, right? We've got to a point where by the time Tony Blair's finished, right, they believe that subverting the actual laws of the country, not as a citizen on the street, right, not as like, not as, someone, kicking windows through or, jumping up and down on a car bonnet or, nutting someone, right? We're talking about very responsible positions in government, and then they're making laws for the running of the government. Why not? Tony Blair might have said that, there aren't any laws. Once you get into Parliament, there aren't any rules, there aren't any legislation, there aren't any laws, right? There are only laws for citizens on the streets. There aren't laws for judges, there aren't laws for members of Parliament, there aren't laws for... But there are laws. These so-level justices, ministers and councillors, right, subverting the liberties of the realm, perjury in the courts, they actually truly believe now, they're radicalised, that they truly believe that it's more serious an offence to have the personal idea or thought, let alone advertise it and start to collect signatures or get votes in the polling station, right? That to get votes in a polling station or to get petition signatures to say that, oh, I want white people in my country, right? This is just an example, right? Is actually a crime and an offence. But it's not, it can't ever be. But they're trying to make it into it, and they've nearly succeeded to make people believe that it is. Like with actually Lennon in his video, right? But that it's more serious against humanity than leaders of governments breaking the laws of their country. Now, how can that be possible? How can you say to Donald Trump, right, that as a person with your own opinion to say, I would like, this whole country to be one big golf course, right? Or I would like this whole country to be one big swimming pool. Or I would like this country to be in an industrial chemical factory. Or I would like this country, I want everyone to eat cheese, right? I don't want any other foods in this country, only cheese will be lawful, right? Or I want all white people in this country, right? Now, what they've actually done is, that's actually, you're a criminal. Or they're trying to claim that you're a criminal. And that it's more serious, right, than breaking the laws of the country at the highest level. Like judges and MPs, like the Attorney General. That somehow breaking the laws of the country isn't serious. It's just, But Starmer, if he thought it wasn't that serious, why is he so serious about, why did he leave the CPS and prosecute people, for putting a hand on someone's knee, right? You can't take law seriously and seriously prosecute someone for, an insult or speaking a word or putting your hand on someone's fucking knee or whatever, right? You can't seriously run an organisation that takes people to court for those things and uses millions of pounds of police money, right? And now in Scotland, they're saying that, if you say something in your own house, right? But yet, you don't believe that at the highest level of government that you have to abide by the law. And if you have, you don't even have to answer questions about it, right? Or those laws don't even need to be followed or abided by. Like, the Attorney General not meant to be a member of the House of Lords until afterwards when he gets rewarded with that position, right? Or that his legal requirement to check people who are arrested to see if they've got political objects, which might confer special protections, right? That's not important. So we've got to the point where, even though in law it is impossible, right, to stop people from having to say what they'd like their country to be in ballot box, right? They don't, but since Tony Blair removed that death penalty for treason, right? The entire judiciary of England, the Ministry of Justice, the staff of Parliament, the staff of the House of Lords, the peers, the King, right? They don't think that it's a serious crime to commit perjury or treason or subvert the laws and liberties of the realm. They don't think it's serious at an administrative level. It's not that bad, right? Don't worry about it. But they do believe now that because they've got friends like Priti Patel and Shabana Mahood, right, who are now in the government, that they're sticking up for their friends and they're punishing people like Laxley Lennon for having political views to the point where, Nigel Farage can't even have those political views or whatever. And that's terrible because... And maybe they think that because we've got the right to petition and we don't have to be prosecuted and so forth, right, or whatever, that, we'll have a bit of that, Maybe that's what Tony Blair were doing, No, the citizens are getting that. But they're actually not that serious crimes, a lot of them, like putting a bit of paint on the wall. This is the thing we're talking about, deciding what the country's going to be like. Now, this is the thing, right? On the matter of deciding what the country's going to be like, right, we've allowed all these things. We've allowed them, but by allowing them, it's actually ended up now stopping people from having freedom of opinion and views. We've allowed all these things in, and what these things impose on us is that they're kind of self-dictating that now we're not allowed to do certain things, right? Because we've got, a large percentage of, mixed race and religion, that we're not allowed to have certain religious views or opinion, right? Now, this is the thing. What is Saudi Arabia doing all this time? Has Charles set an example to Saudi Arabia and said, oh, look, we've got Shabana Mahood in the government, we've got Priti Patel, we've got Sola Braverman, look at this, we have all types of people here, we're having a mosque in the Lake District, right? Has Saudi Arabia had one fucking church in their country? No. Have they fuckers like? It will let you in here and then you let us in there. Has he fuckers like? Has he bollocks? but he wants his engineering, you know, he wants his technology, he wants his computers, right? But have they got a church in Saudi Arabia? Have they fuckers like, right? Now, I don't see them, you know, coming round to this at all, right? They haven't. And in fact, our country's become radicalised to their religion because they're not even letting us oppose it. So the justices, Justice Chamberlain, Baroness, Car on the Hill or whatever and so forth, they've actually become radicalised to defending and protecting their best friend pals like Shabana Mahood, right, and Priti Patel and Suella Braverman, who themselves can't even defend themselves, when they meant to get a speeding ticket, when their driving licence is meant to be privileged to get to Parliament and back, right? Suella Braverman can't even protect her own driving licence, right? But yeah, actually Lennon is in prison. What's actually happened is that Charles has radicalised this country with Islam and Muslims, and to a fact where they're actually being defended, right, to continue to push it. But not one church is being built in Saudi Arabia. Not one, right? Now, at this point, right, we're not trying to set an example for Saudi. We're not encouraging them to come round. They aren't coming round. They haven't come round. And if Charles claims that it's all a little, fairness show to try and, encourage them to accept, do a swap, right? It ain't fucking worked, right? It hasn't worked. They want our money. They want plastic carrier bags of money. They want our technology. They want our industry. They want our engineers. Why don't they want the religion? What's wrong with it? Now, are Saudi racially discriminating against us? Right? They're the country that is religious discrimination. Now, they're saying, you can practice, they're not stopping Christians practicing in their country. Well, you'd have, if you were a Christian and that were your religion, why it's a miracle you were even allowed in the country, right? We will have a bit of your engineering. Well, that's a fucking good job, isn't it, Mr. Saudi? Because our engineers are Christians, so you'd have trouble getting him into the country if you didn't allow him to practice his religion in there, right? It's like, we'll let you practice Christianity in Saudi. Oh well, fuck me, half of the engineers are Christians. How do you get the fucking goods in? This is a thing. But don't build any churches. So this is the thing. And what's an actual result of it in England is that we've lost the edge because people in Parliament, even Andrew Bridgen and Matt Hancock, who are both white, aren't fit to defend their own privileges. They're not fit to... And in fact, Andrew Bridgen's trying to ignore privileges so he can get Matt Hancock. Matt Hancock's not even fit to be an MP because he was off in the jungle on his own lifestyle career, right, when he's meant to be in Parliament, which that's a breach of privilege, by the way, in the book. And they're ignoring these laws for political reasons because they want to get the actual Lenin in. It's a mess. It's a complete and total mess, right? And Saudi Arabia has not had one church built there, right? So the assessment of it at the moment is that we're being completely and totally infiltrated. People at the top of government now, not only are they not following the laws, they've become radicalised to these other religions and they're even defending and supporting them, yet they're not helping get our religion in other countries. The church has now got women in there. They're playing Islam and Muslim music in the cathedral now. I don't know if Charles has lost the arm wrestling match or whether that he was arm wrestling against us. This is the thing. I mean, has Charles lost the arm wrestling match, or was he on the other side? Is he arm wrestling against us? Right? Because he hasn't got one church in fucking Saudi Arabia, right? But yet, now we're getting another mosque in the Lake District after they've already tried to, build on all those other religious sites. So, I really don't know what game he's playing.
Now, if he does not want to stir up any more trouble, he stirred up trouble in his own country. There is no trouble there's no trouble in Saudi Arabia because they ain't got a fucking single church. There is no trouble. It's illegal. So that is the most racially and religiously discriminative you can fucking get, right? And in fact, if we didn't have engineering and engineers, they probably wouldn't want us in there anyway, right? So this is where I am with Donald Trump now. It's like, you can't say that lying and fraud and corruption and complete disregard of the law of your own country is somehow, shrug. It's just, what a shame. It's nothing. But having an opinion of what you would like your country to be like, just as a matter of fact, it's your personal opinion, is somehow the most greatest evil possible. Particularly if you happen to want your own country white or Christian, right? That's the greatest crime. To have the idea, right? Oh, maybe my country should be white or Christian. Why? Because look at the state of it, right? Everyone's fighting and arguing now, right? That would be a greater crime than getting judges to comply with the laws of the country. And this is the philosophy of Tony Blair. This is Tony Blair's legacy. Tony Blair doesn't think it's serious. Tony Blair doesn't think that MPs have any laws to follow, or government departments. It's comedy, Or if the citizens have got the right to petition and they've got protection when it comes to deciding what the country should be like, then when it comes to running it, why the fuck should we follow the laws, right? Tony Blair is, it's almost like Blair and Charles are like Tweedledee and Tweedledum or something. I don't know what their game is. I really don't know what their game is. And it only becomes apparent when we get onto this Bill Gates technology, or now everyone knows what I'm planning, thinking on my phones. That's none of your business. No, well, now it is. Now it's our business. What videos you watch and all your data. Now Mark Zuckerberg's made it his business. In fact, he's making money. My private thoughts are none of your business, but now my private thoughts are making money for your business, right? And also, we're also going to be, completely profiling everyone on the fucking planet, and almost like, deciding what everyone's future is going to be and whether they like it or not. And I think that's what it is with Blair's mechanisms of implementation, right? Tony Blair believes that he's got the legal right to profile every single fucking person on this planet, right? Make it his business, right? And then implement mechanisms whereby he will, pull strings for you or not. Or you might end up having certain thoughts which disallow you from even fucking engaging in public business, right? And that's the problem with Tony Blair. Who the fuck is Tony Blair? Who the fuck is he? Who the actual fuck is Tony Blair, right? Who the fuck is he? He went to Lincoln's Inn. He doesn't even know the fucking law, right? But Tony Blair believes that you can't have an idea to think, I think everyone in England should eat cheese, or everyone in England should be a frog, or everyone in England should be, eat blackjacks, or everyone in England should wear the colour red, or everyone in England should, eat snails for breakfast, or everyone in England should be pink, or everyone in England should have purple eyes. You can't have that idea. But, apparently fucking, Steven Spielberg can do it for a story. You pretend that's not going to influence anyone, right? But being a corrupt member of the government, committing perjury and lying's okay if your friend Shabana Mahood, right? So because the Chief Justice has got a friend called Shabana Mahood is from another country, you're not allowed, the Axel Lennon is not allowed to suggest all these things. He's very dangerous in this country. Well, fuck me, why don't we send him on community service in Saudi fucking Arabia? Would he be safe there? You know, has he got any engineering skills? You know, why don't they build actually? I'll tell you what. You know, why don't they ask the Saudis if they want to build a church in Saudi called the Tommy Robinson Church, the first church in Saudi Arabia, and we'll fucking lock him in it for 10 years, right? And see how safe he's there, right? The Yaxley Lennon Church is the first church in Saudi Arabia, right? Under maximum security of Tommy Robinson, right? This is the thing, you know, but this is the thing. You know, is Shabana Mahood, right, going to negotiate with, you know, the foreign prince in Saudi to allow the first church to be built in Saudi Arabia called the Tommy Robinson Church, right? Or, you know, are they just going to skittle us over? Because there's no resistance allowed here. You're not allowed resistance. It's illegal now. Well, they're trying to make it illegal to want certain things, right? Or even expressing those views is intolerable. Well, churches are intolerable in Saudi because there aren't any, right? Now, I actually hold Shabana Mahood personally responsible, right? If that country will not have one fucking church there, right? And either they're going to have one there, right? Or then, you know, they don't deserve to be in this country. If Saudi Arabia will not have one church in this country, it does not deserve to have one member of its religion in this country, right? And it's lucky that they're in there. But not only that, they're actually trying to make us argue with each other to talk about it or decide whether we should have it or not. We're not even allowed to think about whether we should or shouldn't have it or not, right? And to the extent where they're trying to make out that it's more serious and causing more trouble than completely and totally undermining the laws of court, which this fucking Justice Chamberlain, and who the fuck does Justice Chamberlain think he is? He's saying there's no such law. When there is such a law, it's just blatant lies. And I'm not saying that wasn't a problem in 1670 with William Penn. I mean, we still had problems then with diverse evil justices, right? But now the diverse and evil justices have got some friends and pals here who are actually even more diverse because they're, let alone, you know, that you have a tumultuous assembly. Now, there are 50 more other reasons of things that you can't say or do in public, and they're just like putting people through trials and tribulations. These people, you know, Saudi Arabia is highly discriminative, right? It's highly discriminative, right? They want our technology and technicians and engineers. But they will not have one church there, built there. They won't allow it. So who is the one who is discriminative, right? When our country's full of mosques now. We're not discriminative. They don't even want us to challenge it. It's a full-on invasion, and I don't even know what side Charles is on. It's a mess. Right, I don't know whether he's pretending to lose or whether he's arm wrestling against us, or whether he's like fucking, you know, Mr. Flex, whatever you call him, Fantastic Four guy, you know, Mr. Stretch or whatever. We just don't know what his game is. But this World Economic Forum, you know, what the hell's going on with Putin? You know, this is the thing. These countries now, right, they are the discriminative party. And they're trying to make out that we're the problem by actually saying, oh, just a minute, right, okay, we've got all mosques in England now, right, now are you going to have one in Saudi? No, right, well, fuck off then, right? What can you do? Well, we've lost, right, we've lost, we've been massacred, and now we've been turned against each other, right? And if Saudi Arabia, Donald Trump should pick up the phone, ring that fucking prince up in Saudi Arabia, Mr. Cutlass or whatever, and say, look, right, you'll build a fucking church in Saudi, right, or you can fuck off, you can get out of my country, right, because, right, you know, we're doing a thing here, right, it's like, I'll do something for you, you do something for me, I do something for you, you do something for me, I do something for you, you do something for me, right, he's done nothing. Right? He built that church in Saudi, right? Or they can fucking get out of his country. He's got a choice, right? He's the one who is being discriminative, not us. He is the one who is being discriminative. And now he can't even say, right, we had loads of churches in England. Have they got any in Saudi? No, none. Right. So you didn't keep your end of the bargain. Fuck off. Right? And that's it. Because they are the ones who are discriminative, and now we're having second thoughts about it and starting to debate whether we should be going along with it or not, right? They're trying to make it illegal when it can't possibly be illegal, because you've got the right to vote for whatever you want your country to be like, right? And these judges are friends, they're pals, right? So it's like, oh, you know, so they're all pals together. And they're actually punishing people in this country for their view and thinking that is more serious than very serious, high, corrupt and illegal practices in the government, which Tony Blair said, oh, that's not serious. Corrupt and illegal practices aren't that bad. In fact, you know, there isn't such a thing as a corrupt and illegal practice. It doesn't exist, you know. This is the thing. You know, should Tony Blair be on the fucking, you know, should Tony Blair be on the throne in America, you know, with a charge? This is the thing. Or with a COVID jab. This is the thing with Tony Blair. You know, and for all the intelligence that Tony Blair's got, for all the aeroplanes that he's been on, for all the meetings he's been in, he's just, who the fuck does he think he is? Oh, I've done lots for this country. But Tony, it's a complete mess. Everyone's arguing with each other, and everyone's panicking about this facial recognition and technology. We're at the brink, and you caused it. You welcomed it. You invited it. You caused it. And either, you know, and Tony Blair's, you know, best comment is like someone else's problem. Well, it's not Saudi Arabia's problem, is it? Because they haven't got any churches there. It's not Saudi Arabia's problem. You know, it's someone else's problem. That's what the fucking prince in Saudi's saying. Oh, that's someone else's problem. You know, not my problem, because we don't have any churches here, so it's not my problem. This is the thing.